All right. So welcome everybody. And I want to welcome you to a brand new perspective on pain. And at the same time, this is a brand new year in Chinese medicine, the year of the green wood dragon, which is very powerful and is about breaking out of the box. And I figured that was very relevant to what we're going to be exploring with pain today. And there was so much, just to warn you, there was so much material on pain that I wanted to share with you that I've actually cut it in half because I wanted to also make time for us to get some experiential practice as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go through the overview and then we can do questions unless they're burning or unless I'm not being clear about something, then feel free to pop up a hand. And maybe Inga, who's very good at watching the chat, can let me know, if anyone has a hand up that I haven't noticed. Okay, so are we ready for this, to me, very thrilling, I'm thrilled, exploration of pain and the brain? And what I'm thrilled about, to give you a clue, is that I didn't realize how much personally I was involved in this story of pain and the brain. So you will see. Okay. And hopefully in my story, you'll be inspired. Actually, what I'd like to see is just a little show of hands here. You'll be inspired to work with your clients, step up another level. We're always stepping up levels, aren't we? We're always growing. And maybe, if you have levels of pain yourself, so just, you don't have to share, but if you're interested or willing to let me know, I'd like to know. I'm going to go into gallery mode. How many of you have personal pain that you struggle with, or you are close to people that have, chronic pain? Just out of curiosity. Quite a few. All right. Well, the studies show that at least 50% of, I don't know if it's the world, but definitely Americans suffer from chronic pain, which is huge and it's growing. So let me get my share going so that I can give you some tools for yourselves and also for your clients. Let's see where it's gone. Oh, there we go. All right. So again, there's lots of information about pain. There's lots of old ways of working with pain, and a lot of them, don't work, or they actually cause a whole lot more harm, as I'm sure some of you experienced. I definitely did experience when I was young. So this is, in the last 20 years, this is research that is really causing a big breakthrough in the way that we can work with pain. So pain to pleasure. What's that about? Is that possible? So in this presentation today, I want to share with you a way, using network neuroscience, how to turn down the dimmer switch on pain by increasing your joy. Yep, and I know a lot of you are familiar with the way I talk about this. How do we work specifically with pain and joy? So, just to be official, the information in this presentation is shared for educational purposes only. It's not been evaluated by the FDA or any other medical body. We don't aim to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any illness or disease, and always consult with your doctor or health practitioner before acting on any content shared, especially if you're pregnant, nursing, taking medication, or have a medical condition. So, just to get that out of the way, and then just a reminder that this masterclass is being recorded for public purposes. So any participation signifies your consent to being recorded. Okay, so let's get on with this. How do we turn down the dimmer switch or the volume on pain? Is it possible? Well, in allopathic medicine, the only way is either through surgery or medication, and sometimes super intense medication, which way too often has really bad repercussions. And I'm very heartbroken at what happens to people when they're offered them.
Sorry, Susan, to interrupt.
Yes.
But Jessica was writing in the chat that she wasn't hearing you very well. So I wonder if that's for everyone.
Is anybody else? Do I need to speak louder? Can you check, Inga? A thumbs up if it's okay. I'll just double check. Is it okay? I'll keep talking. Give me a yes or a no. Yeah.
Could everyone do the thumbs up again, because
give a
I
thumbs
didn't.
up if it's okay.
Yeah.
Loud enough. Okay. Jessica,
Yeah.
thank you. I will do my best to speak up. All right. When I go into talking about pain and trauma, I may go lower down, but I will speak louder and keep reminding me. So how do we do this? I'm going to give you an overview. Yeah, there is so much incredible research coming out, and that could take days, but I just want to send you away and inspire you that it is possible, and that people are making remarkable breakthroughs in being able to turn down the dimmer switch on their pain. And, like I've seen with you, I totally relate if you've got pain. I had my worst pain story was after I'd hitchhiked from England to India and contracted a severe form of amoebic dysentery that the amoeba ate their way up to my liver. The reason I've got this big brain here, the network neuroscience brain, is that I unwittingly, just to give you a spoiler alert, in healing this pain, I was using network neuroscience back then, but I didn't have a clue what I was doing. But what saved me was I didn't believe the diagnosis I was given. Or I believed it, but I didn't believe I had to suffer with it. So I just had this constant chronic pain. And I went to 10 different doctors in 1 year. They kept sending me to the next one. Well, I had a friend that worked on the Nile. He might be able to help. And in the end, I ended up in the Hospital of Tropical Diseases in London, having been in ICU and been hemorrhaging in Hong Kong. And everyone was scratching their heads. And I was on these horrendous painkillers. I have no idea what they were because I was only 20 then, 21. But I just knew that I couldn't survive on them. And so here I am in this Hospital of Tropical Diseases in London, finally, after a year, and the 10th doctor, actually the 9th doctor. And I'd had a nasty test. It was horrible. And the doctor, who was a Queen specialist, was standing in my hospital room and telling me that I had holes in my gut, and that when I was complaining that the medications made me feel like a vegetable and I couldn't stand it, he basically said, "Sorry, dear, this is what you're going to have to do for the end of your life." And he was thinking short life, because people with holes in their gut don't last very long. Not that he told me that, but I realize now in retrospect. And I couldn't fathom that kind of diagnosis, where I just couldn't think straight. I couldn't get out of my bed. I was just always in pain, and these medications weren't working. Fortunately, there was obviously some angels watching over me, because just before I went into the hospital, somebody had said, "Try acupuncture." And so I said this to the doctor, the great doctor, and he said rather pompously, he'd never heard of it working outside China. So they were going to do another nasty test on me the next day. And my mum, fortunately, was back in England, and she helped me escape. So we snuck out of the hospital, never to go back. And even looking at this picture gives me the shudders. I better do some of my own practice on that, some of the practice that I'm going to teach you today. So I escaped, yeah, and that escape probably saved my life because, you know, I had a mom holding that space for me and her community that was saying, even though we only believed in Western medicine before and did everything we were told with Western medicine, that clearly it wasn't working. You know, 1 year later, 9 different doctors, and I was still sicker than a dog. So, I mean, I'm laughing now because what this is, I'm speaking to you 50 years later, so you know there's a happy ending. And so here he's saying, and I don't know, I've never heard of this stuff working outside of China, and this is 1974. And I did have an acupuncture treatment, so that was my 10th doctor. And he was so loving and so gentle and so caring, and I realized I could heal. And then I went home to Hong Kong to convalesce. So what I did was my mom signed me up for some Chinese painting classes. And, you know, she didn't know anything about brain network theory, nor did I. But I spent hours painting. And I had a wonderful teacher. And the class was amazing. They were always laughing and joking. And I realized that I had no pain. I had no pain at all when I was absorbed in my painting. And in the painting, you know, I'd be here. This is me painting myself in the middle of this vastness and the spaciousness. You know, it's a little bit like biodynamic craniosacral therapy, that spaciousness and the stillness. And I would be there in the middle of my paintings. And you know, I knew something was happening. I wasn't sure quite what, but I knew that I didn't have pain and I didn't have to be on pain meds for the rest of my life, that something was happening. And at the same time, I was getting rather strong acupuncture from this elderly Chinese guy in Hong Kong. And I'm going to talk about how acupuncture affects the brain in a little bit. But these, you know, and I know we have artists, you know, watching here, and you're going to be watching the replay in our community. And I bet you know that the following what you love, whether it's dance or movement or music or, you know, gardening or goats, there's something when we do what we love, the brain can't, or the pain centers can't compete because our pleasure takes over and interrupts the pain. So here was my, you know, little experiment on myself, unwitting, that were helping my brain and therefore the pain. And again, there I would be on this little boat in the middle of spaciousness at the bottom of the cliff, just floating and no pain. So, you know, really, really grateful that I had access to that because I don't know, well, I didn't know that there were solutions back then that were possible, since acupuncture wasn't known to work outside China. So, you know, how do these brain networks, you know, how do we work with it? You know, some of you who've been working with me, you know about the imagination center, and pain gets held, a lot of it in the imagination center, where we worry and we ruminate on the past. So what I was doing, I was ruminating on getting stuck, drinking the holy water, literally the holy water at the Golden Temple in Amritsar, that was riddled with parasites. Yeah, naively, I was stuck in, you know, hemorrhaging blood. I was stuck in the shame of having failed my frivolous hitchhiking trip to India, having failed my friends. I was stuck in all those places. So I was ruminating round and round in the imagination center, and the pain was getting worse and worse. What happened when I started, passionately getting into the Chinese painting, for example, I was moving from, I don't know if you could see my cursor. I can't. Here we go. Okay. I was moving into that awareness of like just being lost, but being aware that I was in these scenes and being aware that I was painting and being aware that I was being aware. And then the doing network is, the actual painting. So what I was doing was bringing my brain into balance, and the curiosity, the motivation network, the play, all these elements were being brought into play so that my brain network could start to come into balance, and the damage that had happened to my brain from the chronic pain was starting to heal. Okay, so that's kind of a little mini example of working with the brain network. But why is this pain issue so important? Well, for starters, we know from the little poll that I've just done with you that a lot of you are in pain. Yep. It's a massive global crisis, and it's just getting worse, unfortunately. And of course, the worst painkillers, the opioids, are being pushed on the public, as we've seen with the whole corruption with the Sackler family. So, and there's insurance covers surgery, insurance covers pain medication. They don't so easily cover what we're going to be talking about. So that's why this is so important, is that to know that there are options that are very powerful. So 1.5 billion plus people suffer from pain, and it's just increasing. So if you're able to add this extra skill, to whatever you're doing, a lot of you watching are body workers, whatever you're doing that can up level and help people, work with their pain at home. And that's what I'm all about, is, empowering people to work, to help themselves at home. So they maybe have sessions and then they go home and they continue to make progress. And then when they start to feel empowered, they no longer feel so much like a victim. The imagination network can calm down, and salience network kind of comes more into balance. We become more empowered, and the brain can settle down and change the old pain patterns. So yeah, why all this emphasis on pain, on the brain? If we just work on the body, we're not getting rid of the pain signals in the brain. We're not shutting down or turning down that dimmer switch, and you'll see more of that later. So in this particular presentation, it's kind of two parts. One, we're going to focus on the brain in this presentation, and then afterwards I'm going to give you some options for something that really helped me in working with the body, where I haven't seen or worked personally with a chiropractor or a biodynamic craniosacral therapist or a rolfer. I was doing all those things for years, every few weeks. I haven't been to one of these practitioners. I don't want to put any of you out of a job, but I haven't needed one for the last 5 years, since I incorporated the brain part and a body part, which I'm going to share with you later. And that probably, just that observation, as I'm thinking now, has probably saved me thousands and thousands of dollars. Whereas before, I was always needing help because of an old broken leg, broken femur, motorcycle accident, whiplash. There were all kinds of chronic pain that I was suffering from that I always needed help with. So I've actually really enjoyed putting this presentation together, because I'm looking at the miracle that I must be, and miracle was my value word for today. And I'm just so grateful, for these skills, and hopefully I'm going to inspire you and for you to be able to inspire your clients. So what is pain? Yeah. Well, we may think it's in something in the body. We may even think that it's because something is wrong, but maybe not. You know, acute pain lasts 6 to 8 weeks, and chronic pain will happen often after this tissue has healed. And we're not going to go into these today, but I'm going to just touch on them so that you're aware that chronic pain, I'm going to talk a little bit about Kelly Bennett, who's a neuro coach with Mark Waldman, who's doing a lot of research for her PhD on pain. And she's determined, and as I have seen too, that historical pain is a big deal. Historical trauma, family trauma can impact current pain that doesn't go away in your client or you right now. She talks, like I have done, about ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. And as you know, I talk about adverse babyhood experiences too, because nobody seems to talk about that. And she says that when you have a score for ACEs of 4 or above, that you have more of a tendency for chronic pain. So just kind of honoring that, we work with that in the Core Light Magic. Twin patterns, the reason I've included this is because in my experience over the last 20 years, and this was William Emerson, psychologist in the early days, talked about this, and he himself is a twin, or was a twin, had a lost twin. So losing a twin in the womb can be a really big deal that can cause us, if we had that, and I did, and I know quite a lot of you on the call did, the gifts are we're more empathic, we can feel more, we sense more, but our senses tend to be more attuned to life and death, more extreme.
Yeah.
And so we might feel pain more extreme. Okay. So that's why I'm including twin patterns. Okay. Yeah. Can whoever's speaking just mute themselves? So then, trauma, we've touched on that. Kelly Bennett is talking about the adverse childhood experiences, and of course, adult trauma as well. An emotional connection to the original pain. So after the tissue has healed, if there's still an emotional connection, then we may continue to keep that pain. The brain may be keeping that pain, holding on to it. Okay. And then brain patterns, meaning, if there's PTSD or the brain has been dysregulated. So that's the brain. And so we're going to be touching a specific part in this presentation today. And then the body, some key things is continuing of old habits and poor posture, which may sound obvious, but it's becoming more and more prevalent because we're all attached to our cell phones and our tablets and our computers. So we're hunching more and more, and that can cause major chronic pain in all areas of our body. And I'll give you some directions or some options to continue if you want to know more about that. And then some general holistic solutions. The one we're going to be working with today is the pain management through brain network theory and neuroplasticity. So we're helping the brain to stop focusing so much on the pain and bringing in the happy memories, the joyful experiences, just like I did with my Chinese painting, and just bumping out the pain patterns. And then we've got, your traditional holistic stuff, acupuncture, chiropractic, bodywork, craniosacral therapy, physical therapy. Movement Qigong is particularly good because it brings that level of awareness and meta-awareness and slows you down so that your body can actually readjust. Feldenkrais is also good in yoga. that's slow and conscious, and not really the hot yoga, very yang yoga, but very slow, moderated movements. Doing detoxes, clearing up heavy metals and healing the leaky gut and healthy foods. Those all can be really important with pain management. And there's also some incredible supplements, homeopathy, herbals, and proteolytic enzymes that can be really good. And I've worked with all of this, and also proteolytic enzymes to help break down scar tissue, not just external, but internal. So we're going to be reviewing the brain network theory, which we've already started to do. We're going to look at the pain centers in the brain, and then we're going to do a practice session of how do you dim down the fire of the pain centers. If you have time to stay with us, if not, no, I will explain it all, and hopefully you'll practice with your body. Okay, so here's Kelly, neurocoach and social worker. Historical trauma. Here was a big insight that I got, was that before you clear old trauma, this is what I got from Kelly when I attended some of her presentations. She, in her experience and her research, is you've got to clear the pain before you can clear the old trauma. I thought that was very interesting, because in a way it could be a double bind. Well, I can't clear the pain until I've cleared the trauma. But with these neural network techniques, you can clear the pain and reduce it. And then it's a lot easier for the old trauma patterns to release. And that doesn't mean you're going to go digging into the trauma over and over. It just means that you're going to do, we'll be talking a little bit more about it, and some of you know this, the memory reconsolidation, where we bring in the new memories that wipe out the old habitual trauma memories. Otherwise, if we keep digging, we're going to make those trauma memories even stronger and more resistant to healing. So memories can be transmitted from the ancestors. And I'm sure you know about this. This is one of the reasons for my Core Light Magic course. I call it, it's called epigenetics, yes. I call it energetic often, because we're carrying the energy from the past. And once we've let go of that energy, we don't need to carry it anymore. Yep. And maybe we don't need to carry their pain patterns anymore. Wouldn't that be interesting? So your memory may not be your memory. Yeah? And questions, were you supported or were you thwarted by your family? Were you blocked? What kind of emotions are being held in because you were blocked? Or was the family unavailable? What kind of emotions are you carrying because maybe you felt abandoned? Yeah, nobody was there for you. So in these cases, as she's saying, and I totally agree, you have to create new memories, which are the real memories in the present, and really getting a sense of who you are in the present, as opposed to who you are defined by the family past, your birth past, your ABEs or your ACEs. I know a lot of you have heard me say this before. So who are you when you're in your adult mode in the present versus perhaps baby mode, where you're carrying everybody else's stuff? So, and also this is where the ABES exercise, some of you know from the birth dance, is very important for helping release family trauma patterns. So acupuncture, why am I talking about this? The main reason is because the research on acupuncture is that it affects the salience network, which is that wisdom network, the enlightenment network, the value network in the brain. It brings the brain into balance, which is fascinating to me, with my background in acupuncture. And as I just said, the reason I even got into acupuncture was because that first session, Dr. Number 10, after I escaped from the hospital, I realized that I could heal. I didn't know how, but I realized that I could. So this, the doctor, the pompous doctor in his white coat that was saying to me, I've never heard of acupuncture working outside China. The reason he'd even heard of it was because in 1971, this journalist, James Reston, was in China doing an exploratory visit because President Nixon was going to arrive and he wanted to be prepared. And while he was there, he got appendicitis. So here's his New York Times article. It's on the front page now about my operation in Peking, 1971. So a few years before, my English doctor had, well, probably because my English doctor heard about acupuncture was because of James Reston. And he writes about this man, his head, who was managing his case, Professor Lee, a calm and kindly man who was the responsible person for his case. Now, the reason when I learned about this, well, when I found all this and I was so excited about it, was because, well, here's James Reston. He's written about being in considerable discomfort after the operation. Dr. Lee, doctor of acupuncture at the hospital, inserted 3 long needles into the outer part of my right elbow and below my knees and manipulated them. And he lit 2 pieces of a herb called I, which is moxa, which looked like the broken stumps of a cheap, burning stumps of a broken cheap cigar, held them close to my abdomen while occasionally twirling the needles into action. 20 minutes later, no more pain. So this is James Reston. And here I am, 10 years after I was in that hospital of tropical diseases with the famous Dr. Lee. Complete coincidence, but I'm doing postgraduate work. So thanks to my own pain, I then embarked in, studying Eastern medicine and was doing postgraduate work in Guangzhou. And we'd all heard of, long before I ever found that newspaper article, we all knew that Dr. Lee, he's this one here, you see, we knew that he was the one that worked with this journalist, James Reston. And what the story was that in working with managing the pain, James Reston's diabetes also disappeared. Now, this was the story in the hospital from Dr. Lee. So that I thought was extremely interesting. So anyway, he was a wonderful man, and I learned a lot from him. And Karen, these 2 guys are acupuncturists from Sydney. But he was very, very kindly, very gentle, and probably would have been the perfect person to manage James Reston's case. But I just thought that was amazing. 10 years later, here I am. I would never have known that here I would be in China with Dr. Lee. And he also developed something called the flying needle technique, which my husband coincidentally had learned when he was in Guangzhou working in a hospital. And he was very famous for this flying needle technique. So that was Dr. Lee. And I'm referring back to my adventure in the Hospital of Tropical Diseases. And after Dr. Lee, a few weeks later, I went to Shanghai to visit the #1 hospital of traditional Chinese medicine. And there in the lobby, they had a whole bunch of bell jars of the pathology of how people had died and their organs of how they had died, like, burst appendix or, cirrhosis of the liver or whatever. And right in front of me was an intestine, a long stretch of intestine with holes all the way through. And they had died of exactly what had afflicted me. So it was a little shocking, but it reminded me that indeed I am a miracle, because I survived that. And no wonder the doctor in London, was telling me I'd be on painkillers for the rest of my very short life. well, I've been able to say I have a long life now, and I didn't have to buy into the Western diagnoses, even though here right in front of me was the proof of somebody who had died. But anyway, so moving on, I'm just telling you that kind of as a little frivolous story that is also seriously true as well. This guy is very famous, and even Mark Waldman talks a lot about him. His name is Ted Kapchuk, and he was an acupuncturist, and he is doing tremendous studies on acupuncture and placebo, aka, working how acupuncture affects the brain and what is placebo. And coincidentally, another coincidence, my husband studied with Ted in 1982. I think it was the first Chinese medicine training in America at the time. And Ted had a long ponytail, and he always wore a beret, and he always wore, casual baggy clothes as an acupuncturist would. But now he's a very venerable professor at Harvard Medical School, and he's researching placebo studies and therapeutic encounter. So the reason I'm bringing up him is the power of placebo and what we can do with our patients, and for you yourself working with pain, and it's pretty profound. Ted's research is basically saying, what helps treatment. Placebo is number 2 after allopathic drugs. And of course, with allopathic drugs, they will often be pretty severe. There can be side effects. With placebo, there aren't. No? So what helps his research is, actually, Julian was telling me yesterday, Ted, because he was interned with Ted. Ted had a very wonderful bedside manner. He was very, very empathic. He really listened to his patients, and there was absolutely no judgment, and he just accepted them exactly for who they were. And acceptance is a really big piece in working with the brain and pain control. So Ted is his own really good example. But here is what came out from the research. The patient's attitude and beliefs. So if they really believe that something is going to work, it's definitely going to be very helpful. I have an aside here because I've seen acupuncture work a lot on animals and little kids, and they don't have any beliefs about it. They would rather not have needles stuck into them. So this is his research. The doctor's attitude. So if your doctor, holds the space for you that you can do it, to me, that's really important, as practitioners, that when we have total faith that it's possible, that, the patient or client can get tremendous mileage from that if they feel very supported by that. What Mark says, that if your doctor doesn't believe in what you're doing, alternative medicine, holistic medicine, then don't tell them. I tend to be the opposite. Is like, tell them what you're doing, build that potency. But the ritual of treatment, Ted talks a lot about ritual touch. So, in Chinese medicine, when you're feeling the pulse, that's ritual touch. For all of you as body workers, biodynamic craniosacral, there's that amazing sense when, you put your hands on a client, and I'm sure you've had that sense where they just go, ah. Yeah. I know that I do. And I know that sense also when I'm putting my hands, very gently, coming into relationship with the head or somewhere in the body, but I'm going to talk specifically about the head. It's like, there's a click that happens and an alignment of the fluids and the flow. So, we have an awareness, maybe even more than Ted, although Ted will have that awareness, but more than perhaps Western medicine, of what this ritual touch is about. The Mona Lisa smile, when that happens, it's like you're just completely peacefully in balance as a practitioner. So if you think of someone you deeply love, visualize their face or an incredible accomplishment, the mouth muscles and the eye muscles soften. And that then communicates with the client or the patient, and they feel more trusting, they're more open, they become less skeptical or suspicious. And then also another big piece, which Dr. Porges talks about a lot, is the soothing tone of voice and prosody. Hopefully you can still hear my voice. And when Ted did this research, and he's been on the news and he's been all over the place with this, the healing doubled, which is pretty astounding. The healing doubled. So that, my takeaway from this is, the importance of us as practitioners to, be in our own center and coherent and peaceful, and also for clients or patients to be around people that are like this to help them heal. And I know some treatment protocols, they actually have an agreement with their family and their friends that they won't talk about symptoms, they won't talk about anything that's negative while their brain is healing, for the months it takes for the brain to heal. And it can take months, it does take months if it's chronic pain, to consistently keep shifting into this much more open-hearted space. So, but pretty amazing, huh? Coming back to acupuncture, just I couldn't resist this one. There was a study in Tunisia, of all places, that showed that acupuncture was more effective than IV morphine for acute pain in the emergency medicine department. So pretty amazing. More effective than morphine. And the study was 300 patients. So again, the research now is showing us that acupuncture, whether it's sham acupuncture even, that's what Ted is looking at, it affects the salience network. It affects the brain and calms down the brain. Here's my husband, and he had his own pain story when he was 15. He reminded me of this yesterday. He had a pretty acute appendicitis, and his dad, who was an elderly MD acupuncturist, used needles on him, and he still has his appendix to this day. That's a pretty intense pain story. But he worked in the pain management center in San Pedro Peninsula Hospital in California in 1986, and it was very successful. It was a group where there was an MD, I think it was an orthopedist, a psychologist, and Julian was the acupuncturist. And they were so successful that the hospital closed them down. And the hospital was owned by some physical therapists, and they were losing money. So I'm sure you will have often heard the story when people doing holistic medicine or interventions that don't cost that much will get shut down. Dr. Porges had that experience, and Bessel van der Kolk, I remember him at a conference talking about how when he was very successful, he lost his funding. I think Porges was criticized severely when he was doing really well with autistic kids. So, I guess it's just it's a compliment, I suppose. Here he is working, Julian, in China, in Guangzhou, and this little guy, he's working on his scalp for a neurological condition, this poor little guy. The reason I'm showing you this is because here, those of you who work with craniosacral work, just to give you an awareness of that all the parts of the body, the homunculus that you will have learned about in school, in the brain is like, these are scalp acupuncture points, and when they're needled, they're able to affect certain areas, the relevant area in the body through the brain. So for me, you know, I never liked needling scalps, but just doing the craniosacral work, yeah, where you're just gently, you know, holding space, honoring what's happening in the brain and the body, and having that awareness of, wow, there's, you know, there's traditions that go back millennia that have been working with the brain to that. The scalp acupuncture is fairly recent actually, but just the fact that, you know, you can use needles to affect the body, it to me is really, really powerful. So if you can use needles to affect the body, well, just holding that just loving intention of, wow, this can do even more than, you know, I can even imagine, way beyond anything I can imagine. And here it is all documented. And this, as a lot of you know, I always like to share silly things to make you laugh. And this is Julian, and these are his two doctors in China. And he told me he thought I think this little doctor is actually standing on a bench to get a little taller. So anyway, just they were lovely. He has really good memories of doing his postgraduate work in China, and came away with a lot of knowledge, you know, and wisdom of this ancient medicine. So the coming back to, you know, chronic pain, it continues because of unconscious associations that can continue that were happening at the time of the original injury. So they keep the pain in place. Okay. So again, coming back to the imagination network, you know, the worries, the fears, the in quotes, memories that are going, uh-oh, I shouldn't move, you know, that limb or my back or you know, my neck, because all these horrible things happened before and they could happen again. And there's all kinds of things that the imagination network wants to ruminate on. And so what I'm kind of sharing with you here is to the importance of shifting into present day. You've heard me say that many times, present day awareness, and coming into balance. If you see that star in the center, that's your awareness center. And shifting into pleasurable activities, you know, happy memories, imagining future joyful things that you want to be able to do. And just the imagination is really, really, really powerful, as you know. And you're going to be helping your brain reorganize and come into balance. So emotions are like the glue. You know, I've always said that for years. It's like when there's an emotional pain that happens at the same time, it tends to seal in the trauma, seals in the pain until it dissolves. So acupuncture, you've heard me say this, affects the anterior cingulate and the insular, which is the salience network. It's right here in the center of the brain. And actually all these, this is the doing network, central executive network, motivation network, which is all about play, curiosity, emotions, amygdala. So acupuncture seems to affect this area, which is probably why it's been so powerful over the millennia. So it's working directly with the brain. So we're looking at some of the causes of chronic pain, you know, coming from what, you know, a lot of you are working, you know, we're working together in the birth dance. Thomas Attlee, we used to teach together at the College of International Medicine, Oriental Medicine, International College of Oriental Medicine in England. And he was teaching the pathology. I was teaching pulse and tongue diagnosis and acupuncture anatomy. So we've been in touch for a long time, and he founded the Center for Craniosacral Therapy in London, done a lot of work with birth, and his quote, simple childhood falls and head injuries have a subtle influence on personality and mental state. This can include birth trauma, which is its profound physical and psycho-emotional consequences. It includes compression of the skull due to a difficult birth with its many after effects that can contribute to lasting distress and chronic pain. So again, he's talking about what I call ABES, the adverse babyhood events, and that it can be lasting. And what I'm saying here is, if the emotional, Thomas is calling it psycho-emotional consequences get, encoded, embedded, that it can contribute to lasting distress and chronic pain. But I'm also saying here that we don't have to carry that anymore. And when we let it go, that chronic pain can go. Cool, huh? Here's another cause of chronic pain, postural prolapse. And I'm going to talk more about that at the end. I'm just lightly talking about it because we're more focusing on brain rather than body here. But, due to computers, texting, accidents and old injuries, we don't recover the good posture. We create habits so that the motor cortex and the cerebellum are not, they're stuck in the old habits. And so in the healing, we need to help invite a readjustment so that new, healthier movements are created. And all possible, which is very exciting, all possible, once we know what's going on. So yeah, when we get the posture over time, we can then get physical pain. But this is Mark. We can easily destabilize those memory traces by learning how to move with greater awareness. We can practice mindful walking, moving super slowly as we take a single step. So it's that super, back to what you've learned already, that slowness, the mindfulness, the awareness of how we're moving. That allows the motor cortex and the cerebellum to overwrite inefficient movement memories and to replace them with new ones that allow us to move pain-free. Okay. Now I'm going to skip through this, but again, this is research from Dr. Ronald Rubin that complex psychogenic pain is when there are changes, but there's no history of recent trauma, no evidence of lesions, but traditional treatment doesn't help. And it's proposed that it's trapped by old emotions, and once that's unlocked, then it can heal.
I wonder, Susan, if this might be a time to have a little stretch and yawn.
I think it's an excellent time, Inga, talking of yawning. So let's stretch and yawn, everybody. And just let's check in. How are you doing? I'm racing along because I want to get us to do the experiential section. Can you hear me, Jessica? Hello? Oh dear, really? Can everybody else hear me? Okay, so I wonder what's going on, Jessica, maybe with your microphone. But I'll try and speak louder. So, I just wish that these ways of looking at pain were just more widespread. It's just so heartbreaking what people go through. I was lucky. I didn't have to suffer for too long, but if I had gone that way, I wouldn't be here today. That sounds dramatic, but I wouldn't be alive. So I'm really, really grateful for all these alternative, which shouldn't be alternative methods that are available now. And my heart goes out to all those people that we've lost. All right. going back. Oh, actually, did anyone have any questions? Or was I going too fast, apart from my sound? Too fast, too much, too intense? Carol, yes.
I saw that there was a permission, to record that we clicked, or announcement about recording. Will this be available in our course materials?
Absolutely.
Great. Good to know.
Yes, because I'm zooming through this, and as I say, I've cut out at least half, but yeah, absolutely. And maybe, we'll have time to do some practice sessions, extra practice sessions around it. Okay, thanks for the question, Carol. So back, and then hopefully we'll get to practice. So, this is a mark. As you know, the black slides are marked. Worrying about pain, can trigger the pain centers in your brain. So that is back to this imagination network, the yellow, the default mode network. So, how do we stop worrying about pain? When we're in pain, it can be really, really hard to not worry that we're hurting ourselves or that our clients are hurting themselves. So there are 12 pain processing centers. They're not in your body, they're in your brain. And I'm going to show you a great picture later on. This is just, you don't have to take this in, just kind of to be aware that they're in your brain. And the yawns calm down 5 of the pain centers. One of the reasons I'm so big on yawns, and lots of research, and it just continues to grow, balances the brain networks and calms down pain. So that's one of our strategies, that you already know about. Acute pain gets stored in the brain centers. We get a car accident or some kind of accident or injury, or, way too common, young boys hitting their heads, getting traumatic brain injury on the soccer field. Way too common, unfortunately. An emotional response, and then the brain sees this as danger and will generate pain. So it goes from the body, brain isn't even aware that there's pain, and then when it gets up to the brain, that's when it generates pain. And so emotions, if they're so strong, they remain after the tissue has healed, and we've talked about that. And general anesthesia, this is an example of turning off the brain processing. I mean, the pain processing in the brain. The body will send signals to the brain if there's trauma, like a very simple example is the hot stove. The brain isn't even aware until the body sends signals up to the brain, and then the movement happens. Here we're talking about how we work with this, and Joseph Ledoux, I know a lot of you have heard me talk about him, and Mark Waldman has too. When dealing with painful memories, we create a competing memory that suppresses the old memory. So that's what we're going to be working with when dealing with pain. What is the memory attached? And how do we create competing memories to suppress the old stuff that we don't need to carry anymore? But here, let's just do a little mini pain inventory. Just kind of, I've been speeding along, and you may want to just, make a note of just really, really slowly. You can do this every day, just in a mindful way. This is very different coming from your, mindful awareness place versus your imagination, where you're scanning, taking an inventory, going, uh-oh, this is painful, that's painful, I can't move. When you just mindfully scan and rate. So Gently move and flex each part of your body, paying particular attention to your joints. Explore the tiny tensions in your neck. I'm just doing a gentle review. We're going to be doing this more slowly in a while. So we're going to do the neck roll. Then you can roll your shoulders. You can flex the muscles in your arms and hands. You can check your torso and lower back by twisting around and contract and stretch the muscles in your legs and your feet. And notice all the little legs, just with a kind of very loving, compassionate, non-judgmental place. You're not going to worry about it, which is activating the imagination network. You're just observing. It's that witness mode that you've been practicing. And if you're not aware of any aches, then you probably move too fast. This is from Mark. So I'm just going to give you a chance to take a screenshot of this if you want, just so that you can use it as a practice, and you can encourage your clients. But again, the caveat is non-judgmental, not worrying, just being aware of, oh, okay, there's a little twinge here, there's a little ache. Hello, it's like you're saying hello to your body and including it, waking it up. Okay, so there's the pain in Bandhari. Another view of the acute pain, which is the red. Yeah, you can see there are like four centers of red. And the rest is when it turns chronic after 6 to 8 weeks. Yeah, again, you don't have to remember any of this, but just showing you all the pain centers in the brain that we're going to learn to switch off. So what we need to do is redirect the brain towards pleasure. Yeah. Because if we don't, the brain gets stuck. Imagination network just spins and spins and ruminates. And we have this vicious cycle of increasing symptoms. And then the worse our symptoms get, the more we worry. And then the more we think something's terribly wrong. And then we get stuck. I actually deleted a slide here, but I'm going to bring it up because I think it's relevant. I don't know if you've ever heard of a doctor called Dr. John Sarno. S-A-R-N-O. I think he died when he was about 94. And his views are a little bit dated now because he believed in repressed emotion, kind of more Freudian. But his whole deal was, he was a rehab doctor, and he worked with thousands of people that had had surgery that were still in chronic pain. And he would review their MRIs, and he'd look at their discs and their cracks in their spine. And he'd just say, you're fine. You know, get moving, move. And get, clear out that emotion that is stuck, and you're not expressing the emotion, and that's what your pain is about. You can find him on YouTube, and he's written books. And I first heard about him at a conference many years ago where people were sharing how they had surgery. This was a holistic conference, and his reading his books had changed their lives and cleared the pain. So again, it's just, I'm trying to build a consensus for you that it is possible to clear chronic pain, even if you've had it forever. At least you can turn down the dimmer switch, and that when you realize that actually you can move and do things that you didn't realize you could because you've been told you couldn't, it can be very, very liberating. Okay, so the more you know that there's this big body of incredible research and actually testimonials and stories, it'll help you hold that space that chronic pain can heal. Okay, so you need to redirect the brain towards pleasure. Elevate your mood, and this is every day. This holds with what the work we're doing in the birth dance also. laughter yoga. I post in the Facebook birth dance group. I do post, you've probably noticed, funny little clips, either funny or loving or heartwarming. Those are to bring your brain into balance, to shift from painful trauma, to pleasure. The laughter yoga, I mean, that can be very funny. You're laughing for no reason. There's all kinds of great clips on YouTube. My favorite is when they sing, and they're singing, and then they say that, you know, everyone can sing, even people who can't, like me. And they'll start with banana, banana, coconut, 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 kiwi, kiwi, kiwi. And you're all singing along together, just having a great time. And that silliness shifts the brain from trauma and danger into safety. Okay, and we've talked a lot about, you know, shifting from danger to safety. When the brain feels safe or safer, it can heal. Okay, so funny movies, video clips, laughing babies, pain and mood are correlated. So when you keep going into those good experiences, remember me with my Chinese painting, you know, dance, whatever it is that you love, less pain. When you keep watching it, I've had people I've worked with that said, "You mean those samurai movies that I love to watch aren't helping? You mean those old, you know, scary, violent movies aren't helping? I thought they were waking me up." No, if they're sending you into danger mode, stop them for the moment. This is what my play formula book is all about, until your brain has healed and you're not in chronic pain anymore. But anytime you go into danger, the pain will exacerbate. You know, these are simple little things that sound so obvious, but when you share them with your clients and encourage them to do them daily, it starts to reorganize the brain. You can't feel pain when you're feeling pleasure. Yeah, I can prove that. I can prove it. So if you're in super severe pain, or you have clients you're working with, you know, who really can't move, and are really struggling, you start with your imagination. Imagination is really powerful. They've done incredible studies. I think one was a basketball study where they, the people who practiced in their imagination were almost as accurate, you know, throwing a ball into a net, as the ones who didn't use their imagination. They just practiced live on the basketball court. So when you practice these very simple, easy movements at first, like tiny, you know, if you can barely move your spine, for example, and you just, you know, imagine the wiggle, the famous wiggle, very slow and gentle, and see how that is. And you do it in a way that is pleasurable. I have a colleague I trained with, gosh, like 1980. His name's Bruce Bell, and he's a dancer and he's a movement therapist. And when he was about 60, 64, I think, he collapsed completely. His body gave up. He couldn't move. And he did not want to go through surgery. Painkillers weren't an option. And what he taught himself to do was tiny movements that were pleasurable. I don't know if he knows about the brain network theory. I need to reach out to him. I read an account from him. I need to reach out to him and ask him if he knew about it, or if it was just intuitive. And he just lay on the floor and just practice these tiny movements. And now he's back up and living an amazing life and helping a lot of people. So you start with these, or get your clients tiny, simple movements, and then you see yourself moving into the more challenging movements as you can. And that way you're not activating the pain radar. Yeah? You're just sneaking underneath, and you're keeping on connecting with the pleasure so that you're changing your brain. Pretty cool, huh? And, you know, whether the diagnosis is fibromyalgia, phantom limb pain is a really big one, because the pain is still activated in your brain, not yours, but people who are suffering from it. You know, they think they've got excruciating pain. So yes, it works for this, neuropathy, migraines, IBS, arthritis, all kinds of different pain that we've been told is incurable or will never, it's not going to work. So we have to, like I had to do, step out of the box, know that there are incredible possibilities, know that people are doing really well and healing. Every day there are people healing. So when you know that, then your brain can start to go, oh, well, if they can, then I can. There's nothing like the power of consensus. How much time does it take? Everyone's different, can be slow, but it does take every day, daily practice. Then shifts will often be seen within 4 weeks or so. In 6 months, there's less pain often, the dimmer switch gets turned down. And when you have a bad day, then you know what to do. If pain is really bad, it's like, okay, what's going on? What can I do to slow down, yawn, stretch? Work with the body and make the shifts back into it being a good day. Some my teachers say it needs to be a minimum of an hour a day. I've had people that have done really well with an hour a day that I've worked with. When it's been serious, that's an hour a day of elevating the mood, thinking of wonderful, happy memories, future memories, challenging that imagination network to stop ruminating and worrying and keep focusing on the life that you love. What are you looking forward to doing in the future that just really lights you up? And remember, one of my the freeze flow exercises, what lights you up after you get support? What really lights you up? When you get support, when that container gets held for you, what can you really do that you love? And so often we've shut those places down. We've shut down our needs. Often if there was twin patterns or early birth trauma, we never allowed ourselves to actually do what we love. And sometimes a diagnosis can be a catalyst, especially a dead-end diagnosis like the one I was given, to go, what is it that you would really love? And for me, it was like, I'm not going to let this stop me. I've got a whole life ahead of me to live. So every time you catch yourself worrying, change your focus, come back into awareness mode, meta-awareness, awareness of being aware, and don't give up. Don't give up. So chronic pain is a biomedical condition, generated by measurable changes in the structure and function of the central nervous system and the brain. Healing occurs through the intentional repeated application of neuroplasticity-based tools to reverse the changes that cause the persistent pain to develop in the first place. This is a quote from a retired psychiatrist. There she is, Dr. Ellie Stein. She's Canadian, and she specializes, I don't know if she's still doing it, but she specialized in chronic pain because of her own pain issues, and emphasized the importance of working with the neuroplasticity of the brain, knowing that even though the brain does change with chronic pain, we can change it, we can heal it. Okay. I'm going to skip that. So, we've talked about TED, Kapchuk, and placebo, and the power of placebo for reducing pain. And actually, I remember that even with pills, TED, the difference was the needles was even more powerful than placebo pills. But even when test subjects were given pills and told it was placebo, they still responded. So again, what Mark keeps coming back to, and TED definitely, is that it's your presence as the practitioner. Yeah, what you're holding, do they trust you? Is there empathy, compassion, non-judgment? Are you holding a place, faith in them that they can do it? And I guess for me, the grateful place, and I'm sure for some of you too, is that I've gone through it. I've been through the worst I could imagine, and I'm through it. And if I could do it, then I can hold that place for others. So that's a gift of suffering, I suppose. Here's what's more effective than placebo. This is Mark's research that Mark has produced. Rest and pain. You can see that little pain center. Rest and pain. Rest does not help pain. It's actually the opposite. Yeah, we need to move. Meditation and pain, mindful awareness, it reduces the pain. Look at that. It's really turned the dimmer switch down. Can you see that on the right-hand side? So this is a 2015 study. So again, back to that mindful awareness, that acceptance, letting go of the resistance allows the shifts to happen. Again, back to my favorite image, chronic pain continues because of unconscious associations. Yeah. This is just to repeat. Yeah. Emotions keep the pain in place. Just as a reminder how powerful it is that keeps the pain in place. So we're going to turn down that dimmer switch on pain. I'm going to review this with you. Then I'm going to, we're not going to, well, we've got a couple of things to review. And then I'm going to complete this presentation, and then we'll come back and do the practice. And that means that if you need to leave, you can, and practice with a buddy later. And those of you who want to stay, we'll do it together. So here's the network neuroscience. And again, remember, I'm working with the brain network neuroscience today, and I'm going to give you some options of working with the body that helped me dramatically, where I have, touch wood, I haven't needed to see a chiropractor or any kind of body work practitioner, because I needed to. I haven't needed to see. If I choose to just for the pleasure of it, that's completely different. But I haven't needed to for the last 5 years, which is that's a miracle. So the yawns, yeah, as you know, really important. That turns down 5 pain centers. The slow stretches, neck roll, we're going to do tapping into the inner values, pleasant memories, self-soothing touch. A lot of you know about that already. And we're going to do the neck roll right now. Yeah, oops. And this is the brain pain centers. And what we want to do is imagine, like a hose coming in and turning out those little fires and calming down your brain. Did you get that, Carol? Got the picture of it. All right, great. So let's just practice. We're just going to do, I'm going to come out of the, great. So we're going to practice really, really slowly. Okay. First a yawn and a stretch. Okay. And remember the yawns. Notice where that yawn comes from inside you. And then a second yawn. Kind of let yourself be yawned and see what happens. Notice what happens in your brain as you yawn. And then a third yawn. Just like a cat or a dog. And then I've got my timer, because where's my timer gone? Add my timer. We're going to do 60 seconds where you're going to just really, really, really slowly, you're going to make yourself comfortable first, really comfortable, and then really slowly move your neck very slowly. And anytime you get a kink, you're going to yawn into it. Right there, I've got a kink. Yawning into it, and then slow, slow. I'm going to time us. So starting 60 seconds from now. Really, really, really slow. With that place of just gentle compassion, non-judgment, meta-awareness. And wherever you get a little ache or glitch, just yawning into it. And if you've already completed the cycle, you've gone too fast. And just notice if you want to speed up and let yourself relax and slow down. So, and if you manage to slow down enough to do your whole neck roll, and that's 60 seconds. I'm still doing it. Well done. Anyone want to share how that was for you? Really, really slow neck roll. Yeah, Carol.
Actually have some kind of strange pain thing going on in my neck, and a paresthesia that's actually very comforting and feels good in the skin of my over my deltoid for the last 3 or 4 weeks. And so, to try to make a neck rotation is like yawning every like every step of the way, really.
Yeah.
But I could take an hour and do it really slowly. And I'm really curious about if there's something going on in the brachial plexus that's causing this strange, like fun sort of paresthesia. If I could get rid of that too, because this is telling me probably something's going on there. But then, they're the brain centers. So
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm curious.
I'm curious, so let me know how it goes, Carol. Yeah.
Mm.
So yeah, this neck roll is just a really slow start. And as you do it, being aware of, shoulders and paresthesia and low back and what's happening everywhere else as you're doing your neck roll and as you're doing your yawns. Okay, thank you, Carol. So we've got inner values. Yep, I know you know about that. So when your inner values bring you into the present moment. So again, you're rewriting the old memories of when the original injury or trauma, or maybe you just slept on your shoulder wrong, but whatever it was, you are rewriting that and bringing your body into the present. Pleasant memories, again, you're elevating your mood, you're shifting the imagination from the rumination and worry mode into the pleasant memory place where it's like you can daydream of that. What kind of wonderful things can you do when you're pain-free? That's just like imagining, and then your body starts to go, oh, this is what it feels like to be pain-free. And then, of course, that self-soothing touch if you get stuck in an area that, you know, an emotion comes up is uncomfortable or disturbing, then, you know, whatever works for you, you know, there's lots of different tools, as you know, with neural network, and you're going to use what's right for you. You know, some people use the safe word. It's whatever works for you or whatever works for your client, and you're going to just find out what works and then support them in doing that. The other thing is with values and memories that, you know, after, you know, a few rounds using the same value word or the same memory word, this is different from your core essence, which seems to be eternal, and that too can change. But, you know, have a series of pleasant memories and wonderful things that you're planning to do in the future, so that you can rotate. Because after a few times, like maybe 7 times, then your brain's going, okay, let's do something new. Remember that curiosity, always curious, always wanting to explore. And that's what I want you to line up, these series of pleasant memories. Like, for example, what I doing today was like, ooh, I can't wait to see you all again. No, I can't wait to share this, you know, this exciting work with you. Layla, I see you raised a hand. You want to share something? Layla, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Yes.
Yes, I wanted to reflect on something about the, the excitement of potential new experiences, pleasurable ones and whatnot.
Yes.
And maybe you have mentioned it, but it's important for me to emphasize that in my personal experience, in order for that to be a risk in certain arenas, there has to be enough safety in the now.
Yes.
So whatever the caliber of that risk of a future that is pleasurable is, there has to be equal or more safety in the now to be able to really activate that part in my brain that is excited about it and not actually triggering and inhibiting. Because then the imagination doesn't really quiet down. It's assessing for risk.
Yes. Yes. So great question. And that is that dance, isn't it, between safety, yeah, because if you go too much too fast, it could be dangerous. That's the old experience, yeah. So how can you do baby steps? That's why it's practicing in your imagination. We're not saying run out and do something. How would it be if you felt safe enough? Well, let's say when you feel safe enough, yeah, because you're practicing, to do something pleasurable that in the past I couldn't have even imagined being possible. And what would happen if I start stretching my capacity? Baby steps. And that's why it's that dance between that safe container. Yep, the 5 keys to create your safe container where you're in charge. And then you reach out. If it's not safe, you're going to go back again. But you're in charge as the grown-up. Is that making sense? Yeah.
Yes.
So honoring that danger, there's a quote. It's a term. It's danger in me, dims and sims. Danger in me. Is it dangerous? What can I do to create safety? And, you know, we've been practicing, all of us together, about what can you do to create safety where the baby couldn't. Where is it? Where's my, here's the birth dance chart. Yep, birth dance chart, which you've seen me hold up a lot. And it's like the baby couldn't change things, but you, the grown-up, can. So you're creating the container. If it's too much, you're going to go back. And, you know, this work is about encouraging people to step out a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And that's why I mentioned Dr. John Sarno. It's worth watching him on YouTube. I think he's got something called the 12 Reminders. I researched him a few years ago. I suggested to some of my patients to read his book before they went in to have surgery. but they didn't because they were so believing in the surgery. And some of them still have chronic pain. So back then, maybe there wasn't so much, it just seemed more weird. But when you read his book, and he's talking to people, there's actually some video clips on YouTube where he's saying, and I think there's a movie about him, it's called All the Rage. And he's talking to people and say, okay, I know you've been told you can't move, but I'm saying, looking at your MRIs and everything, I'm saying you need to move. When you move, that's how you heal. So they then started to move, these people, and having him support them and saying, you know, yes, you've been given information before. It didn't work for you, did it? Let's try this approach and see what happens. And, you know, amazing transformation. So, Layla, you're absolutely right. Baby steps. Yeah. Thanks for your question. All right. So these are all things that, you know, you can do for yourself, you can do with your clients, daily. Yeah. And here, you know, here again is the calming this down and challenging when our brains say, oops, you know, it's not safe. I can't go out. I can't do these pleasurable things. Again, practicing in your imagination. What would happen if I imagined myself doing this? Yeah, could I do it? And we're stretching the brain, reminding it that, you know, if other people can do it, maybe you can. Yeah. Just suggestions, you know, I'm not saying if you've got some serious obstruction that you go rushing out. No, you know, you do what your, you know, doctors recommend, and also hold this bigger space at the same time. So I know many of you know this. We're going to be using this in our dimmer switch exercise. SUDS, yeah, subjective units of distress score. And what's fascinating is when you ask someone to rate their pain, what happens in the brain is, if it's a 10, well, yeah, you know, that's definitely very, very hard and very challenging. But sometimes the brain, the imagination network thinks it's a 10, but when you actually pause, slow down, yawn and stretch, it may only be a 2 or a 3. And then the brain can go, oh, I thought, or the imagination network, I thought it was a 10. I thought I was going to die, you know, in 3 minutes, but actually it's only a 2 or 3, so I'm fine. So that's why I'm going to have you in the exercise keep saying, okay, and what's the score now? And what's the score now? Because the brain changes moment to moment. Okay, that's what makes it so fun. It changes moment to moment. So then when we do our values, imagine a happy memory and feel safe enough, Layla, then we checked the score and it was like, actually, Layla, with you, we went to, what was it, a 1 or a 2, didn't we, in that last exercise? Yeah. And it's like, well, is that dangerous as a 1 or 2? Maybe it's not. Maybe it's manageable. And then the imagination center can calm down. And then those little pain areas that are on fire can go, this is the reality now. Yeah. And you can be very loving and compassionate with your brain. Okay, brain, this isn't, I'm not on fire. I'm actually just a little sparkle. And again, I know some of you have seen this before, but I love this, the inner value exercises. So it turns on 2,000 stress-reducing, immune-enhancing genes. This means we are not run by our DNA, even though people want to tell us this, you know, allopathic medicine. This is epigenetic. It means when we bring in our inner values and focus on pleasure and what we love and who we truly are, we're reducing stress, we're reducing pain. Okay, so this is research from a while back. So just remembering that that's what we're doing when we're doing these practices. We are reducing the stress and we're enhancing the immune system. So I'm going to review this with you just so you have it. You can take a screenshot if you want. And we're going to come back to it later. But it's just 2 people today. And you're going to be in relaxed mindful awareness, RMA. And then person A, we can call them practitioner, is going to say to person B, what does your intuition, not your beliefs about pain, what does your intuition want to explore? Remember what intuition is? That's that coming from that deep inner knowing as opposed to trying to figure it out from what you think you should be doing. So person A says, staying deeply relaxed. Allow any image or thought drift into consciousness. I'm going to do this really slowly so you can kind of get a little bit of a sense, of what we're doing here. What does your intuition bring up about pain? Staying deeply relaxed, allow any image or thought to drift into consciousness. And then rate it on a scale of 1 to 10 and write that down. So right now I'm doing it with all of you. And then we're going to yawn and stretch together. And you're going to bring up whatever works for person B. Do you want to do some, pillow is short for self-soothing. Bring up a value word. What is your value word right now? Why don't you write down your value word? That shows up in this moment. And maybe think of a pleasant memory. Or even, somebody that you love very much who loves you. Imagine their face and notice what happens inside you. And now rate the pain. Even if you don't have any pain, imagine you have. On a scale of 1 to 10. And then ask for an insight about this experience so far. And write it down. That's because when we're in the present moment, we often don't remember. And what you're doing is going to be speaking this out. Person B is going to be sharing this with person A. And then after that round, person A can say again, let your imagination select any scene. This is imagination, the daydream and the intuition part. Any scene. It may be to do with pain, it may not be. If you're stressed, and share it. If your stress increases, pause and return to relaxed mindful awareness. And person B, who's doing these yawn stretches, observes what's going on for them without judgment, observes any painful feelings, and every positive moment you savor. If either of you notice discomfort, you come back to relaxed mindful awareness. You repeat the suds subjective unit of distress, and you ask for insights. And again, you go through that, the yawns, the stretches, the values, the self-soothing touch, insights. Okay, and that may be enough. Yep, just right there. And you can check in with each other. Or you can go a little step further, and this, if you're working, with your clients or, with the body outside this particular masterclass. But you can let your intuition select another scene, even a different memory or thought, where are you going with this? If there was pain with this incident, does it lead to another one? And remember, you're not going to spend more than 10 seconds or so. And Anne-Claire was bringing this up earlier, some people want to get stuck in the catharsis. I'm willing to bet a lot of you already have done that. What the research shows is it keeps us stuck, and it just, digs deeper trauma grooves in the brain. And what we want is just lovingly contacting it and then bringing in the pleasure. Yep. That can erase the old patterns. And the more you get to practice this, the more miracles you're going to see. So be curious about where your imagination goes, play with it, and then, just you'll know when you're done. Let's set the intention when we do the practice that, you don't have to do a long drawn out one. It can be fairly brief and complete. Yeah. Very lovingly, and choose something that's very light, and have lots of compassion. And is this a good time to conclude? And I'm not going to limit your time. What I've learned is that you need to go at your pace, yes? So have you taken a screenshot of this? Up. Yeah, Carol, do you have a question?
I know you said what pillow means, but I don't remember.
Soft pillow. So the reason it's pillow is because for some people, if they've had a lot of pain related to physical abuse or sexual abuse, it can be hard to do the self-soothing themselves on their own bodies, face stroking, shoulder brushing. So if they take a soft pillow or a soft blankie, then that can be really resourcing for them. That makes sense? Thanks for asking that. Yeah, good. Yeah, I'm glad we clarified that. All right, so this is the dimmer switch exercise, and just know that, these are some guidelines for you, but I just really want to give you the power that you're going to trust between the two of you what works. Yeah. And you've learned if something is too much, you're going to do a timeout, and just slow down, yawn and stretch, come into the present, in a value. And it may be that, it may be too much for your intuition and it's saying, I need to stop now. Yeah. No judgment, whatever comes up is perfect. All right. So that's our dimmer switch exercise. And here was just a little study, which is one of the reasons for this dimmer switch exercise, is they did a study with rats, and every time they hit a lever, they got electric shock, they got pain. And that changed their brain to a pain brain. When they started giving them food instead, that meant pleasure, they were able to erase that memory from the past, and they were able to research this in these poor little rats' brains and prove that now the pleasure had taken over. Joseph Ledoux. Okay, so thank you, rats. So just a reminder, we can interrupt traumatic or painful memories from the past that may be stimulating pain that you feel right now. And that's what that dimmer switch exercise is about. With memory reconsolidation, that memory could be stimulating the amygdala to cause physiological pain. So we know that. So to repeat, your body doesn't feel pain. Yep. The injury first, and then the pain gets transmitted to your brainstem, which is the first pain center in your brain. And then the information gets sent to the motor cortex and the cerebellum. So the slow, tiny, tiny movements after you've, let go of an old painful memory, you're reorganizing your whole body and your brain and your motor cortex and cerebellum. I'll actually jiggle on my my rebounder and let my head wriggle and reorganize from all the old injuries that used to run me, but don't anymore. That motorcycle accident, that was a doozy. There I am. I can still be angry about it, but no, now it's like, hey, it's helped me get to where I am now. So Layla brought up the dims and sims, danger if it feels too dangerous, to start practicing creating safety, noticing what's dangerous and challenging, that SUD score. Is this really a 10? Is the house really on fire? Or is it just a 1 or a 2? But I just assumed it was a 10. When it's a 1 or 2, do you feel safer? Here's a little case study, very close to home. Some of you have heard of my mom, seen my mom. This was her a month before she passed over. And she was a candidate for serious pain tendencies. She had a serious head surgery, mastoid brain surgery, when she was 9. Massive twin pattern. She was way over twinning and merging due to her mother had multiple miscarriages after she was born, and my Aunt Susan was born 7 years later. So that's why I call it twin patterns, because she may or may not have had a lost twin, in the womb, but the miscarriages are all the babies, the little souls that she would have connected with and related to, that then disappeared. Yeah? So that's why it's a twin pattern. So again, we talked about twin, more prone to more intense symptoms, more life and death, more loss. She was a World War II refugee, escaped from Hong Kong to Canada. And she had, at this time, supposedly the diagnosis was stomach, pancreatic, and liver cancer. This was 1 month before she passed over. So what happened? And again, she was a wonderful example, poor mom, but I'm very grateful, because here was, she was a guinea pig, I guess. I was doing a case study here under my eyes. And she trusted us for some reason. And she came out to LA from England, and because she lost a lot of weight, so we did some studies and tests and MRIs and saw what was going on. But we kept asking her what intuitively did she want, and so we worked with her herbs and homeopathically. I actually handed her over to some dear friends. One was an MD homeopath, and the other was, she's now a psychiatrist, Dr. Janet Rannicki, and she had been working with Carl Simonton on cancer and pain. And so I had this incredible support system around me. I had a team supporting me. Yep. So she had some acupuncture and bodywork, minimal. Play formula, I developed that because of her, but what we did was the ingredients, anything that made her laugh, made us all as a family and our friends laugh, play, touched our tears because it was so awe-inspiring, helped us be involved. We did it together. Gratitude, laughter, community, wise guidance, holding the healing space, not just for her, but for me, for my husband holding space. My dad was there. So multiple layers of support. And I've got my favorite brain picture here. So much more fun than the anatomy that we all had to study. What we were doing was shifting from worry and fear to joy. She was imagining what she loved to do. We did what she loved to do, a lot of it. We had prayer circles. She actually was part of a healing community in England. And we did what was fun, what was curious for her, whatever it is intuitively. And we would say to her, what do you want? Do you want to do allopathic? I did a bunch of research, and all my allopathic doctor colleagues said, don't go near it. Yep, surgery, etc. So they all warned me, but we kept saying to her, what would you like? And she became very greedy, Jessica. I don't know if you're still here. She became very greedy in the best sense. She could never have needs with that twin pattern. She always had to be taking care of everybody else. And after the diagnosis, everything changed. She really got needy in the best sense. And the more needy she was and the more requests she had, the happier we were. It's like that oxytocin and the dropping of the breast milk. We enjoyed her enjoyment and we did things that were fun. Did she ever work on her early trauma? No. Yeah. She could have done, but it didn't, was it? She felt complete. She had fun singing, did a lot of singing, even though she couldn't sing. Prayer circle, community, love, laughter. And, thanks to our team and Dr. Ranaki, we created a program for her that gave her the confidence to follow her heart. So she died with almost no pain until the last day, which is, again, unbelievable. When I look at it now, it's unbelievable. I couldn't have believed it would happen. But we were basically following back then network neuroscience. Yeah. When I think of her now, I have a big smile on my face. She died on St. Valentine's Day. So in a week from today, in a room filled with flowers and music, and she literally just stepped over. And the day she died, she said, "I'm ready to go. Why won't I go?" And I said, "I'm the one that's still holding you. I'm not ready to let you go." So I had to do a big letting go. And that night, that was the only day that she was on allopathic painkillers. So pretty miraculous, inspirational, and hopefully it inspires you that you never know what can happen if we just dream our dreams. Here she is. Actually, this is an interesting case study story. Here's my cousin in the back, whose mum had cancer at the same time in England. And she went through mastectomy and then liver cancer and went into a coma and did it all the Western way. And it was heartbreaking. That was the control, unfortunately. And there was my mum in California with us flying. And here she is. There she is right there. And this is Dr. Ranaki, who is now a psychiatrist, continuing to teach these amazing principles. So this, again, another turning point for me that changed my life and made me not afraid of working with pain or serious illnesses. This is Mimi, who was a top Tony Robbins coach and totally into the gratitude and, what is it you want to do today? What is it you love? And she adored my mom. They became best friends and she just coached her. And my job was to let go and stop being the caretaker. So there's my dad. So here, we've touched on the importance of working with the brain for chronic pain. And there is this amazing work that I want to share with you. I'm going to send you an email how you can access 4 free videos on working directly with the body. And these 2 things, working with the brain, network neuroscience, and working with the body in this way, through kinetic flow and changing my posture, because I was getting more and more hunched the more programs and computer I was stuck on, and getting severe back pain, triggering just because of my bad posture. Not just because, but all the old patterns. And it's been a miracle for me. As I say, it's saved me thousands of dollars. So I'm hoping that this will inspire you. This is my goal, to encourage you to take care and control of your health and pain. Think out of the box, be empowered, because if I can do it, you can do it. And is it possible? Here's my question to you: to shift from pain to pleasure. Turn down the dimmer switch on pain. Is it? What do you think? Give me a thumbs up if you think it is. Could it be possible? Yes. All right. Good. Yes. And, I'm just in deep sorrow for those that we have lost because of chronic pain, and the millions, tens of millions, who are damaged and harmed because of chronic pain, because they have had nowhere to go. And one of my goals is to encourage you and inspire you, because each one of you, you're all amazing in your own right, practitioners in whatever field you're in. to hold this place, that it is possible and that there are options. So bring on the pleasure, be unstoppable, and don't give up. And I think that's the end. Yep, that's the end of this presentation. And I'll be sending you an email. Actually, I'll post it in the neuroscience section as well on how to access these free videos. They're very, very good information, good tips to get started with. And there's also a little program if you want to continue with it, which is what helped me. But any questions before we go into, well, let's see. For once, we finished right on time. Wow. Any questions? It's because I cut out half my presentation. There's usually so much I want to share with you. So any questions, concerns? Did we get stuck anywhere before we move into the practice session? No questions? Jessica, few minutes. Yes, Jessica, go practice. Go and take a break.
I just wanted to share,
Yes.
if I may,
Share, yes.
because what came up for me was birth, you know, the whole pain. And I had wonderful births that were ecstatic. And it's something that's difficult to share because a lot of people have such painful memories around giving birth. And I think all of this applies to that too. So I just wanted to celebrate that, yes, it's really incredibly powerful to be able to embrace transitional rites of passage in a joyful way. So yeah, I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, so Anne-Claire, you're saying each one of your 4 pregnancy births was joyful and ecstatic?
Well, the first one was totally. The rest of them were pain-free because they were joyful, absolutely. And I birthed them in water because that's my personal resource. Now realizing that I love being in water. And so just connecting with water, I was in that place where I could totally relax. And yeah.
Wow. So just holding that, let's just savor that, what Anne-Claire has just said, you know, that all babies, my wish is all babies could be born like that, yes? And just holding that place that it is possible to, you know, have ecstatic birth, have pleasure in an experience that is often very painful because the mums aren't resourced and they don't get the support that they need. So savoring. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And Anne-Claire, what's happening right now with you as you're sharing this with us?
It's always a bit nervous because I know that a lot of people have such painful birth stories. And so it's very difficult to celebrate openly having had such a wonderful birth for my children. So it does feel like I'm putting out there things that can wake up, like you said, feeling holding space for those that didn't have the opportunity to have such resourced supportive birthing. Yeah, so it's holding both at the same time. So.
Okay, well, Anne-Claire, let's do a little poll, can we? Let's see how that is for others as you shared your birth experience. Because what we're wanting to do, or I'm wanting to, is kind of break out of the box, you know, so that we know what's possible, that we can hold for our young mums coming forward. How is that for you mums? I see somebody, is that you, Patty, talking and you're muted? You know? Oh, yeah, how is that for you? Others that Anne-Claire has shared her ecstatic experiences. Yeah, Carol.
It makes me really joyful, Anne Claire, to hear that not only one, but 4 children were born that way. And I had 2 fine births, but I know so many people who didn't. And, you know, it just really does give hope that more and more can be that way. So thank you for sharing and for caring about others who maybe didn't have that. Touches my heart.
Hmm. Yeah.
I'll go. And Claire, I just I've read about ecstatic births, but it's phenomenal to get to hear about one in person directly from someone I know. And yeah, sing it to the hills. I think more women need to hear it regularly all the time. And it just takes a couple sentences to change the trajectory of a woman's choices and her experiences in birth and those early years has been my experience. So thank you.
I love that, Kate. Sing it to the hills.
I wanted to share something. So when you first shared about your fourth ecstatic birth, I was really able to connect with that essence of joy and celebration. And then in the reflective part, when you were aware of the nervousness and holding space for the other experiences, I became aware of my own journey of, it was technically a clinical abortion with a non-viable fetus. And it was very traumatic and it turned my life around. So in you holding that space, I became aware of that as well. And there is value in that. But I wanted to just express that when you shared it, that wasn't even in my field. And then when you shared your reflection, that became conscious in my field. But just by virtue of having the celebration part, it was also informing that other piece in me. So I agree, sing it to the hills. Thank you.
All right, lovely. So I know Jessica's taking a few more minutes. Peter's back. Peter's here. So I'm assuming everybody who's here wants to practice. Yep. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to put this on pause. There we go. Jessica and Layla. Welcome, welcome. Can you hear me, Jessica?
Just barely. I can hear everyone else when they spoke, but
Yes.
like Inga was very loud and
Yeah.
somebody else, but your voice is very quiet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I reset my sound twice on my computer during the Zoom, but it didn't change anything.
Oh,
So I don't know.
yeah, I've got the right. Would you either of you like to share how it was for you? I'll try and speak a bit louder for you, and I'll see if I can increase the amplifier while you're talking, Tess. Oops.
All right.
That says it's okay, but who would like? Oi. Sorry. Who would like to share how it was for you?
Either one. Layla, do you want to go or do you want me to go first?
I'd like to listen first.
Okay. So I wanted to explore more when it was my turn to be the client. What I experienced when you led us through the exercise, Susan, which was that when I could feel this pain, that's a chronic pain, when I would imagine my grandmother's face, it kind of smushed out most of the pain, just left a little whisper. So that was cool. But what was more amazing is that it seemed like her face created sort of a, imagining her face created sort of a boundary where, so my energy just didn't go like flying out into the world, like it was actually more contained. And I'm fascinated by that. So that was what I wanted to explore.
Wow.
And I did write down my insight, which I've totally forgotten. So it's good that we write it down.
Good.
Oh, so this is then we worked on something else besides that, but the scene was of my mom and sister and I in a restaurant, and that was actually from the moment, like the beginning of colitis, because it had been so so when I just imagined the scene and then did self-soothing after that, the insight was desired goal. The desired goal is more important than the remembered pain, which is incredible because the desired goal is like wanting to get along and for all three of us to be okay together instead of constantly not okay. So that was so cool.
That's
And
beautiful.
that made the pain just disappear too. So
The pain went to what? Disappear to a zero?
well it went initially, it went from like 5 to 1 when I'd imagine my grandmother's face, but then the scene, it also kind of disappeared. And I'm like, how could that happen when it was a scene of something that had been so horrible? But I realized it was the scene without the story just brought forward the desired, the original goal of like, oh, we should all get along and everything should be fine. And so that is what also diminished the pain. So I think I learned like a ton from both of those moments.
Well
So
done. And
yeah,
it seems like your grandmother is creating a container for you. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. When I remember how she was and how I felt about her, like just so much love and
Mhm.
just yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jessica. Gosh.
Yeah.
So pain down from a 5 to a 1 or a 0. Okay.
Yeah.
Layla, would you like to share?
Thank
You don't
you.
have to.
Yes.
Do you want to be quiet? Or
No, I would like to share.
would like to? Okay.
I just need a little time to recalibrate.
Of course. Of course.
My experience, I mean, as a practitioner, I find it very peaceful and playful, nourishing. I'm not saying perfect, it's a learning curve, but it's natural. It's a natural way of going about things, and it's also in harmony with where I have been as a practitioner. Just it fits my style, if I may say.
Great.
As a receiver or recipient or patient or whatever the word is these days, client, it's a practice session, so it got a little wonky for me in that I noticed the challenge, which is also very educational and a great reminder, the challenge of being in the intuition and getting a question about even a recent past information is a completely different part of my brain. So I couldn't do it, and then I had to regroup, and we self-corrected, and then we went at it again. But I couldn't quite surrender to the full role of just receiving the process and being guided through it. We landed on our feet.
Yes.
And I noticed that as something came forth as an image and the distress went up, and then, you know, the havening and the self-soothing and all of that resourced me back down, easing the intensity of the sensation. And then I noticed how sensitive my system is to, which is completely natural in this practice session, but to when the person that is facilitating, because I truly believe it's the intuition of the quote unquote client that leads, the person who's facilitating may not feel fully confident yet. And my system is really hyper aware. And then the insight was how I noticed my safety, which was my core word, decreasing. I became aware of that. So I just sat with that and, you know, resourced some more and came back here.
Mm. All right, so you did the spirit of exploration, you observed, you practiced not being judgmental, it seems, of yourself or of the other. Is that right? And there is a learning curve, so well done. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Baby steps. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the recording